Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's Matt, and we're talking about Game of the Year stuff, is what we're going to be talking about here.
This is our Game of the Year 2017 stuff. This is the one, guys. This is the video.
This is
Game of the Year.
That's it. This is going to be our, and I thank you for reminding me, it's going to be our 90s Kid official Game of the Year, and then a bunch of other fun categories we're talking about. So we got Corey, we got Andrea, we got Matt and Matt.
People and people. Just so you guys know, by the way, this is the YouTube deliberation between me and Matt. We got a bunch of fun categories planned, some fun ones for you guys specifically. And then we will be announcing the official A 90s Kid Game of the Year. But in addition to that, if you go on 90skid.com, all of our writers are having their personal lists. There might be some fun other side categories. So my personal top 5 Game of the Year is going to be very different from Misha or Matt. And so if you're interested in what our personal ones are, you can check early January as we pull into 2018 on 90skid.com for those. But this is just some fun side categories and then the official Game of the Year talk that we're going to do. But yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm excited, Matt. Are you?
I am. Rosner also showed up. Hello to you.
What's up, Rosner?
While the stream was in its stream soon starting phase, Corey said, "Is Matthew Owen going to be here?" And then he typed, "I had a sudden feeling I was dead wrong on his last name and was about to freeze up if I got it wrong." But he nailed it.
Yeah, it's me, Matthew Owen. I got to one of those two firsties.
There you go. All right, so
you want to kick off? Yeah.
Let's start off. Best game that should have sucked. We've got, for our nominations here, Cuphead, Ukelele, Life is Strange, Before the Storm, Sonic Mania, and PSVR. Maybe a quick rundown on why these things should have sucked. Cuphead, long development time, got expanded from a boss rush type game to a full-fledged sort of shoot 'em up platformer. Ukulele, long development time.
Well, let's do one each.
One each, okay, sure.
We can maybe knock them down as we go, or maybe stick them around. Cuphead, I think the thing for me is that Cuphead originally, you saw like 3 seconds of it in like some hype reel a bunch of E3s ago, and then it was super hush. And the more stuff we saw about it was always these canned sequences where no one really got their hands on it. No one knew for sure that it was going to look that smooth, play that smooth. We all just saw something that looked really, really similar to the old like racist-y cartoons. And then what we end up getting, I mean, that's the style, was a really good Mega Man game on top of that. And like Matt said, it was something that was small. And anytime you hear that someone has a vision and they get a lot of money and they're going to take more development time, usually it gets either overwhelmed or overstuffed with too much stuff. And Cuphead just turned out in so many... Everything about Cuphead was exactly what you thought it was going to be, which is insane considering the hype, I would say.
Yeah, I think No Man's Sky really scared people where we saw something that was promising. It was inflated.
You should add that to a later category.
Yeah,
I forgot they came out this year.
Was that this year? No.
That was... I think that was this year. Keep talking, but I'm going to do a quick Google
It was last year. But I think, yeah, once we saw No Man's Sky of something that was really promising and then was inflated with AAA money. I mean, you see this kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You see this kind of thing in movies. You see this kind of thing in sports. Like a quick sports example, you'll have a defenseman on a championship winning team who did a great job being the fifth best defenseman. And then when he wins a championship, all of a sudden another team will offer him 3 times what he got paid to be their #1 guy, and he's terrible. Or you'll see with movies, like Kevin Smith makes really good, cheap movies. All of a sudden he gets signed to a bigger movie publishing deal, and they want to give him like $10 million. They want to give him all this money, hire people, put special effects in it, do all these things, when really that's not at the heart of what he wants to create. So I think that with Cuphead, we thought, well, what's going to happen? Are they going to try to make... Maybe it would not have the legs to become... Like, what if Ubisoft took over and they're like, oh, we want this to have online. We want it to have a persistent open world. We need collectibles. It's like, that game doesn't need that at all. It just needed to be exactly what it was, and they nailed it.
Yeah, I think Cuphead sticks on this list for now. Let's move down to the next one for sure. Are you hearing me all right? You're giving me these weird looks.
Now I can hear you. Were you talking when I was talking?
Oh, a teeny bit. I think the main thing is that it was just such a small indie studio. And like you said, more money does not always equal better content. And since we'd never heard of MDHR and it was a very small 2-person studio, it was like, oh, just let them have their little vision because I really want to see what happens before everyone gets their hands on it.
Yeah.
And that's what Cuphead... But I think Cuphead stays... has the potential to maybe win this category. So I say we stay on it for now and let's go to the next one.
Keep it there. Ukulele.
Yeah, this is the game I gave a 9.5 out of 10 to. And looking back, I was up in that hype train, guys. I'm sorry. But I have the strength to admit when I'm wrong.
I feel like with ukulele, that's very big of you, by the way. But I feel with ukulele, Banjo-Kazooie fans are... There's just something about them that they have to let you know that they're a Banjo-Kazooie fan. Because when they were younger, everyone liked Mario, but they like Banjo-Kazooie.
That's me.
There's this like kind of like indie music, underground, like I'm different. You like Mario, I like Banjo-Kazooie.
There's something inherently different about the way the Banjo tells a story versus Super Mario, and it's usually wacky characters and a bunch of crazy themes. And I think that's a thing that was so hard to recapture, especially when you saw early ukulele footage. It was not good. It was early access. It looked bad. And you're like, how are they going to flesh out these characters or memorable worlds from this very bland thing right now? And eventually they released what, you know, I thought at the time was a 9.5. Looking back, I would say it's probably a point and a half lower, around an 8, but they still managed to, in the year 2017, bring back a 90s era genre, and it's a spiritual successor to that game. It's not like they were trying to create something new like a la Hat in Time, which I think did some of these things just as good, if not better. But they were definitely making a spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie, and they kind of nailed it in all regards. It might not be the best thing for everybody, but it should have sucked. It definitely should have sucked. It was going to. I have no clue how they pulled it out of their butts, but by no means should a game, even with that basic gameplay design, still be fun in 2017. But they managed to make it fun.
All right. Speaking of nostalgic remake / remaster, how about Sonic Mania? We haven't seen a awesome Sonic game in a long time. Now, Sonic, the franchise, tends to have fans that are incredibly passionate and will fight you to the death, or they'll point out that there were good elements to nearly every Sonic game. But Sonic Mania looked terrible.
Sometimes there actually is. There sometimes is actually good things in Sonic games, but I get what you're saying, yeah.
Well, I mean, for sure, there are good things in just about almost any game. You can find some entertainment, but I'm talking about, did anyone think that Sega was going to revisit Sonic 2D and actually make a game that was not just having some good elements, but is a damn fine game, especially after the debacle that was Sonic the Hedgehog, what was it, Episode 4? Or Sonic 4 Episode 1?
They tried to go back to it. Same thing with Generations. They tried to redo that 2D style many times before, and it always came off just a little bit off. And it wasn't until they passed it off to a ex-Sega member, essentially at that point a fan.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, sure, make your game. And then what I find always funny is that Sonic Forces and Sonic Mania came out so close together. So it's almost like Sega didn't believe in it, you know? They're like, well, we have Sonic Mania coming out at the beginning-ish of the year, and then if that doesn't do well, we have our real Sonic game, Sonic Forces, like a few weeks after. So I don't even think Sega thought it was going to succeed, but wow.
You know what?
I think when you stack it up against Ukulele, you can just delete Ukulele because there's no way it's going to win over Sonic even.
And that's another one where the thing I was a little bit leery about is that, sure, it does seem like the greatest idea on paper. Like, why not just give the game to somebody who is proven to be very passionate about Sonic, but he's still an unproven developer? Like, what would happen? Maybe he'd get into like that environment and just couldn't handle the pressure.
Yeah. A lot of work. And well, here's the thing too, is I think when you consider something like, well, it's a lot of work. And I think the thing that makes this category is that it's a game that everyone assumed was going to suck and then turned out so good. And we're talking about Sonic that has been, sorry, Sonic fans, pretty dead since at least, I would say Sonic Generations was the last game I enjoyed. And then before that, there's a myriad of bad Sonic games. But in the year 2017, I think that most people thought that Sonic was going to be at least mediocre. It was not going to be one of the best Sonic 2D games of all time.
Yeah.
Not only is it beautiful in its graphics, both new and old, the music is awesome. The way they change from the first stage and then remix it in the second stage. The new areas feel just as lifelike or not lifelike, but just as full of life and joy as the old areas. So
I wanted more new. I thought the weakest parts of the game were we're going back to it. They were playing it safe, but I'm really excited for what they do next.
and that's the thing, is that you'd think a new 2D Sonic game would be some attempt to cash in on the nostalgia, would attempt to be something like that, and we all thought it was gonna suck, and then it comes out and you're like, oh wow, this is really good. I gave it a 9. It was a good game. And I think we were talking about whether Sega is going to make a good Sonic game in the year 2017 or the Banjo-Kazooie people are going to make a competent open world game in the year 2017. Sega's got the odds stacked against it. So I think Sonic is what's up there right now.
There you go. All right. How about why did you want Life is Strange on here Before the Storm?
Life is Strange Before the Storm specifically because Square Enix put out the original Life is Strange, and most people thought that that was going to be okay. And yeah, that has its flaws, but Life is Strange, the original series, ended up being one of the most interesting, and they subvert your expectations a lot in the storytelling. There's a lot of really, really cool stuff they do in that series that made it almost better than Telltale. And a lot of it is tied to these fundamental characters. You know, Max, you really like that character. Chloe, you really like that character. And then when you hear they're making a prequel, which is what Life is Strange Before the Storm is, that does not contain the original main character. It doesn't contain one of the biggest gameplay loops of the original series. All the voice actors are different because they're on a voice actor strike, so you don't have any of the original cast. And it's a brand new developer writing it. By all means, it should not have been as good because the first one was basically a fluke too. I wouldn't have said it was going to be as good until I had just finished the last episode. And without any spoilers, Life is Strange Before the Storm does a great job not only fleshing out the backstory of a character we liked in the original series, but doing the full circle where it makes you want to replay the original series, or if you haven't played it, continue your story. It's one of those things where even though it's made by a different developer, written by a different set of writers and stuff, it feels like it belongs. And that's crazy. I don't think it's going to win this category over Sonic or Cuphead, but I mean, geez. If you didn't tell me that it was different people, I wouldn't have been able to tell you. Maybe the voice actors a little bit, obviously, because they don't have the same voice. But by all means, especially with how bloated that genre is with all the Telltale games and all the various point-and-click kind of things, Life is Strange Before the Storm definitely sets apart itself. And it's super artistic, too. It's just one of those kind of really nice games. Handles some pretty heavy things with a soft touch, and it tells an interesting story at the same time.
I think Telltale games, the way they've saturated the market, tend to hurt Life is Strange because it's very easy to look at it and dismiss it as like, oh my god, another one of these ones. It's just some indie show I've never heard of. But it's but when you do play it, the polish is so much better. There are so many, and like the Telltale is so nice, but it's very surfacey, other than like Walking Dead season 1 and
a lot of fan service.
Yeah, and like Wolf Among Us is great, but I mean there are the moments in the first Life is Strange. There are like maybe 3 or 4 moments that are just gigantic, and then some of the best things it does is where it'll just let characters breathe in a moment. There's one section where they let a whole song play, and it's just people hanging out on a bed.
I'm glad you picked that up because especially in episode 3, and that's something they doubled down with in Before the Storm. Like you were saying, people see all these Telltale games. They go, "Oh, Life is Strange is some weird indie kind of version. I don't know if I like that."
Yeah, made by Square.
That's exactly what it is. And Before the Storm doubles down on what you were talking about, Matt. There are several times, I guess, light spoiler. You and your friend Rachel are like laying in her bed. She had a bad day or whatever, and there's a point where you make this kind of really cool star show on her ceiling while you lay on the bed with her, and they talk for a little bit, but then what it does is it just lets the song play that you put on the radio and then shifts between these 4 or 5 really pretty shots, essentially of just a teenage girl's bedroom, but it's really, really beautiful with the atmosphere and the music. And they do that several times where they just give it a moment and let the game breathe, let you draw in the characters, let you draw in the tone. And that's why it succeeds a lot. Yeah, sometimes it's artsy fartsy fan art, or not fan art, art house kind of like, all right, you're just focusing in on a dirty pair of shoes and a squirrel. Like, that's not that interesting. You know what I mean? But other times when it works, boy, does it work. And by every reason, it shouldn't have been as good as it is. It's a worthy successor, which is crazy to think about.
Well, and a lot of times a story is told, and that's all, and there's not really much else to explore. But I would think, I haven't played Before the Storm, but I would think I liked the main character in Before the Storm more than the main one in the first Life is Strange. She was probably the low point. She was a bit annoying, but and this whole mystery of where's the missing girl, they never really broached that. So
That's
I thought that they
that's
set
the
themselves
thing.
up pretty well for that second season.
The original Life is Strange, you have this companion character to your protagonist. Her name is Chloe. She's this blue-haired, rebellious punk rock teen, and she talks about her friend that she had named Rachel Amber, who went missing. And that's kind of what Life is Strange, the original series, is about. And then before the storm, when you start off, Chloe, she doesn't have her purple hair or her blue hair. She dresses like a normal teen. She hasn't met Rachel yet. So essentially, before the storm, tells this story about a friendship or relationship between Chloe and Rachel, and it does that story service. You see the growth of Chloe's character from a somewhat innocent teenager to the rebellious teen you learn of her in Life is Strange, and then it also fills in those kind of questions you had in between. Like you said, in the original Life is Strange, Rachel Amber is the lost. She's just the girl who went missing. And then before the storm, you know she's going to go missing at some point. You just don't know
Mm.
how it's going to happen exactly. And they don't. They also do a great job by they don't exactly it's hard to phrase it. They don't write themselves over. The new developers don't go, "Hey, we're going to take your story and hijack it." They accent the story that already exists very, very well, and I think that's the best thing that you could ask for a new developer taking on an already existing franchise.
So
Uh,
maybe, I mean, I think that they had done a good job of setting up this as a second season. That maybe it's not a game that should have sucked. The parts that make it a should have sucked, like you said, it's the voice actors strike is really the main
yeah,
thing, and then it
the voice actor
handing over
strike
to a
being
new
a different
studio.
developer.
But I wouldn't put it
Exactly.
about the other ones because I don't think that it faced enough adversity.
No, no, it's just very surprising that it's good. But if you're judging it by the merits of, well, you're taking an existing franchise and throwing out all the cast, throwing out all the writers and the makers, and plugging new people in, usually you get a bad product. But in this case, it was good. So I agree with what you're saying, though. You can probably strike it from the list
All right,
in
what about
comparison to the other ones we had
PSVR?
here. Mm. Real quick, I just want to say, guys, I was surprised. PSVR, I think, is underhyped. I think it's undermarketed. If you can find one for cheap, when I borrowed mine from my buddy, I went into it thinking that everything was going to be bad, that we had not reached that point yet. That I was playing a discounted version of the Vive or the Oculus. I don't have a powerful PC, so what I'm getting, no discount VR. PlayStation VR is it's great. It's really fun. I mean, there's free games. There's a lot of social games. The subreddit slash PSVR is one of the most welcoming communities in all of Reddit. So shout out to them. It's just a great thing to have. And for me, having such low expectations for both the technology, the community, and the software, and then 2017 being such a good year, I think it's very, very surprising. It doesn't hang on this list against the other two. It's just there so I can be like, hey, PSVR is good. If you're on the fence about it, you should go for it. Have tempered expectations. But as a fact, I was lost in a virtual world, and that's something I can say that happened multiple times during 2017, and it's something I can say never happened ever before in my entire life. So that's something I went in with low expectations, came out with one of the most remarkable gaming experiences I've ever had. And that's worth it for me.
Hmm. Now, is that an honorable mention for you, or is that something that's gonna go up against Cuphead and Sonic Mania?
Well, that's the thing is I feel like it's unfair to put the entire my expectation of the entire PSVR library versus Cuphead and Sonic. And I think that it comes out in so many different ways. I mean, there were a lot of PSVR games that I played and they ended up sucking. I mean,
Hmm.
there were a lot of experiences I had that were just not great. But when you look at some of these things like Accounting Plus, Shooty Fruity, and some of these other ones I've reviewed recently, they're a lot of fun and they exceed my expectations time and time again. And I think that's what's worth at least not, it's like a runner up. It's definitely not going to hang. I'd say it's more surprising to me than Ukulele because I still had some hope in it. But I think this ultimate battle is between Cuphead and Sonic.
All right.
Was the
Well,
indie studio that no one ever heard? What? Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah. The indie studio that no one ever heard of, that we saw a 3-second hype clip of, was that going to come to fruition, or was this titan of a franchise that was it's a fallen titan that hasn't made a good game in years, attempting to return to its roots for the nth time, finally come true on all the promises in the year where it counts the most? I guess that's the question. The unexpected of the indie, or the expectations against the titan that is Sega.
I'm gonna say it's Cuphead because Cuphead It's always harder to do something. It's more impressive what they did because they came up with something new. The animation style, the music, the expanding on something, not just having a boss, even if this was just a boss rush game, but then
Yeah.
the way that they expanded is super impressive into a full-fledged game. And it didn't just do pretty well. It's definitely one of the most it's one of the most talked about games of the year. Everybody that plays it has great things to say about it. Sonic Mania was such a safe bet. All they did was go to somebody who has spent his whole life doing ROM hacks and recreating Sonic
True
games,
story.
and they told him that half the game is basically just a remaster and a recreation, as opposed to
Also,
something brand new. And even the new stuff is just kind of like remixing. So for me, it's Cuphead by a long shot.
I before you said that, I was going to fight for Sonic, but then I had a realization that if you don't like Sonic, Sonic Mania isn't good. Like it's still Sonic. Cuphead is something new, and it's something that not only got all of my gamer friends excited for a cartoonish looking game, but a lot of people who don't play games were interested in it, at least from a visual perspective. I think it surprised everybody, and maybe not everybody had expectations that were low for it, but the way it surprised and surpassed everyone's expectations, I think, yeah, it wins the category. So this is a game that should have sucked. By all means, it should not have been as good. Maybe it's not a game that should have sucked, but it's a game that has no right to be as good as it was. It is just so fantastic. And shout out to MDHR, Canadian indies, dope, awesome, sick debut too. It's a brand new IP. This Cuphead is a package. It really is. It checks a lot of boxes. How long have we been going, Matt?
25 minutes, baby.
Okay, then we're on track. I looked at my clock and I was like, oh, we were supposed to get through these quick.
Yeah, it's probably not going to happen. All right, best use of nostalgia. So we're going with Cuphead, right?
Yeah, Cuphead for sure, for most surprising and or most a game that should have sucked but was great.
There you go. Best use
Cuphead
of nostalgia. Sure. Sonic, Crash, Vudu Vince, Ukelele, Mario Odyssey, Samus Returns.
All right. I mean, we talked about a few of these already. Why don't you go off the top? What was it? The first one again? We have
Sonic, Crash, Vudu Vince, Ukelele, Mario, Samus Returns.
I think Sonic, the way it uses the nostalgia is very obvious, but where it works the best, like you said, the new stuff is the best when it comes to level design and stuff like that. But the thing that really got me pumped was when I hit Green Hill Zone 2 and it was the remixed version. So the way they use the sounds and the music of the original and even just the style of it, I think is their best use of nostalgia. I mean, it's a beautiful game, and the Genesis era graphics, Mode 7 kind of stuff is really, really cool. Or not Mode 7. What is it? Mega Drive or whatever.
Blast processing.
Yes, yeah, that style. It's cute, especially when they use crazy colors like the casino, Studiopolis.
Sure.
A bunch of those levels are really awesome. I think it hangs because it is a nostalgic cash grab. I mean, it's called Sonic Mania. It's celebrating all of 2D Sonic essentially.
I think for me it's Crash.
You got the old mini games.
For me, it's Crash because Crash, somehow Sony convinced everybody that they love Crash Bandicoot, that it was really, really good, and that it needed to come back. I barely played Crash Bandicoot on the PlayStation 1, not competing with Xbox One. I had a demo disc. I played it. I thought it was okay, but I really wanted to play the new Crash, and then I did, and I thought, this is totally okay and fine, and has so many, all it did was remind everybody why it wasn't that great, and they probably should have fixed a few things with it rather than just making it look pretty. So I think that they're the ones that best cashed in on nostalgia.
Well, here's the thing. When I was thinking of this category, I was thinking of rewarding it to the person who used nostalgia the best, not in a shitty way, but like they used nostalgia and it wasn't cheap or cashy in. If this is going to be biggest trick on or cash in on nostalgia, yes, Crash. But I think we shouldn't reward Sony for pulling the wool over our eyes and then we all fight about, wait, is this harder than it was before? Is Crash really this bad of a game? I don't think we should reward them. It's a very good looking game and we should reward them there. But I think when you come between even Sonic and Crash, we should reward that they made a good game that appeased to our nostalgia, not used our nostalgia to take our $40. That's more of what the spirit of the category is, I think. It's up to you if you want to be the cynic of it. We can give it, or we can leave Crash there.
That's how I
But I'm just
interpreted
happy
it.
with
Best use of nostalgia. I think that no game benefited from nostalgia more than Crash, whereas Sonic Mania is still a good game on its own, whether it was Sonic or not. But I think that the
I don't know.
Crash
They
trilogy
ham-fisted
just
those
had
mini games in there.
What's that?
They ham-fisted those Sonic mini games in there, you know, and that's like a nostalgic thing too. I
That's
think
true.
a lot of the component Crash is a remake, whereas I think, you know, let's table it for now. Let's move down the list because I feel like we're gonna come to that fight at the end. What you want to give it to? So let's go to the next one. What's the next one we have?
Voodoo Vince.
Those two stay for now. Yeah, Vudu Vince is fun. If you guys never played on the original Xbox, the thing that's weird is that Vudu Vince is an original Xbox game. Instead of releasing it with their backwards compatibility thing like they did with so many other games, they like remastered it and then released it as a $20 title on the Xbox One store in Windows 10, and they called it Vudu Vince Remastered. I think it's only nostalgic in the sense of, hey, it's that really janky old school Xbox. There's definitely a original Xbox and PS2 platforming era for sure. And I think that's what Vudu Vince kind of cashes in on. But it was such a niche kind of game beforehand, and not many people played it originally. So I think they were trying to cash in on that. But I don't think it had the spread. I want to bring it up because at the end of the day, Vudu Vince is still fun. I had a good time playing it. It has its problems, a lot of them, but it's still fun. I don't think it used nostalgia in any way other than just being a remaster. But I wanted to bring it up because, hey, it's a fun game. You can wipe it. You can wipe it off the list.
I mean, they definitely. Yeah, it
'Cause
was such a surprise to see that out of nowhere.
Crash. That's the thing. It's a surprise because you're like, Vudu Vince, no one really played that. Like Blink's the Time Sweeper would have made a more sense for a remake, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Grab by the Ghoulies would have made more sense, but they just did that with
Voodoo Vince
Replay.
felt like it's such a direct response to Crash Bandicoot because he seems the most like a character that could have been in Crash Bandicoot. Corey LeBlanc in the chat says, "What's Voodoo Vince? I've never heard of that before."
See, exactly, and that's why I don't think it should win this category in comparison to something like Crash or Sonic. The name doesn't, but Voodoo Vince is the story of this little. He's a voodoo doll, and your Madam Ball Seer or whatever mystic goes missing or she gets captured, so you have to go across this like weird New Orleans kind of. There's a bunch of different levels, but yeah, you can like. It's basic platforming. You can beat up enemies, and then the big thing is like when you get enough power, you can do a super voodoo attack on yourself. So you like stab yourself with pins, and then everyone dies. I mean, it's pretty basic. I think I gave it a 6 or a 7. I can't remember. It's not the greatest game, but it is so weird. It is a left field choice for a remaster. Out of all the things they could have done, it's like, why this early one? But yeah, I think if you're comparing that even to Crash Bandicoot used the nostalgia better because Crash at least remade its graphics. You know, Vudu Vince just kind of was like, "Hey, it's the 1080 game."
There's another sneaky remaster that came out, Fahrenheit Indigo Prophecy, a David Cage game, and I was reading some Steam reviews and people were saying this isn't a remaster. This doesn't look any better, and it crashes all the time. But anyways, that's not on the list.
Yeah, no. Indigo Prophecy, if you've played Heavy Rain or Beyond Two Souls or seen Detroit Become Human, the upcoming game, it's the guy's first game. I think I saw some gameplay of that, and that game is janky to say the least. But I didn't even know
played it on the original Xbox. It's a good game.
Oh, I played it back in the day, like a teeny bit. I think it was the PS2. Because that's the one that ends with like the weird aliens and religion and stuff, right?
Yeah, it takes a real. The first part of the game is really, really good, but it had an amazing use of licensed music, and it felt really. They would do like triple screens and suspend things like, oh, can you on your own figure out how to clean up a murder scene in a bathroom before the cop finishes his?
Yeah, I remember that.
But we're getting way up topic. So, Mario Odyssey and Samus Returns.
Ooh, brief shout out real quick since we're here. Night Trap 25th anniversary. It's not a great remake, but it was just surprising they brought that back. Limited run games, bringing it back in 2017. A physical release too. So weird thing. Samus Returns is like a Sonic. I know I skipped over Mario, But Samus Returns is like a Sonic thing in that they were like, hey, we're remaking this Game Boy Advance or this Game Boy original game, and they didn't. They just completely made a brand new game and kind of put the pieces of Metroid Returns into it. They used our nostalgia to get us to buy the game, and the game turned out to be way different than what the original game is. So I even
Really?
struggle to call it a. Well, that's the thing. When you look at an original Game Boy game, it's like this many pixels. You're jumping and you're hunting Metroids. And then when you go to the 3DS version, you now have 360-degree rotational aiming. Everything is fully textured, so it has its own colors. All the areas are different. I mean, I think it's the same map, but then on the same time, you have like a rate. I think it's the same actual map, but you have a radar pulse. So
Yeah.
there's like 5 extra things that were never in the original game. All of the weapons and stuff are modernized too. Um, so I would say that that's kind of in line with Sonic in the way they pulled it off, but also in the way that Crash did it, where they were like, "Hey, you like this game, right? Remember this game?" And they were also hot off the back of AM2R, which was that fan remake
Yeah.
of Metroid 2, and then everyone was really hot off of that. So that's tough. Because I would make that argument for what you're making for Crash.
So Samus Returns is a strong contender. How about Mario Odyssey? I don't like this one there because, well, you could make an argument for it. I mean, Mario has gone off of, I mean, they keep the character quite similar, but Mario Odyssey feels like a real jump forward while also tying together things in the past. I put it on here because it's Mario. It's on Nintendo. They have a lot of nostalgic elements. They even have 2D side-scrolling 8-bit sections in it, but I would say it's inventive.
I am not going to spoil anything for Matt. I recommended it was on this list before I knew that he has not seen credits. And I will say that Mario doesn't exist on this list as an overall thing. Like the whole thing isn't a nostalgia cash grab. There is 2 or 3 moments very specifically in that game. Matt, you've seen one of them. The other one happens at the end of the credits. No spoilers because there's no need for spoilers right now. And don't spoil it in the YouTube comments or I'll ban you. I swear to God. Matt, you'll enjoy it. Finish Mario Odyssey. I think if we had a best moment category or a best biggest surprise moment or something, it would be in there. But for now, yeah. As a use of nostalgia overall, I think it doesn't. If anything, it invents more than it reuses.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, brief moments.
Yeah, the main core of the gameplay is something brand new to the franchise and very original, just to platforming in general. So I would say we can safely take that one off of the list.
I really, really, really want you to beat Mario Odyssey. What kingdom are you on right now, Matt?
I went to the Dark Souls looking kingdom.
You are close to the end.
Yeah.
You should probably finish that game in the next week or 2 so we could just talk about Super Mario Odyssey. Because once you hit the credits, there's a new kingdom that's really cool. And it's you're going to enjoy it the most, Matt, because of your favorite Mario games. And that's all I'll say. Let's decide between Sonic, Crash, I'm not letting you think about it too much, or Metroid.
Sonic, Crash, or Metroid? Okay. I'm pretty hot on Crash because I think that people were already really excited about well, no, that's true. I think the Crash is because, like you say, it's because I'm cynical and I think that Sony it benefited from nostalgia more. Whereas we've seen lots of great Metroid games on handheld. That's always been that's just not just nostalgia. Those Metroid games are good. They're always good.
The thing that they grabbed us is they Crash and Metroid are the same thing. They sold us on a property and we bought it because of that. The end product's just different. Turns out the Metroid game is a crazy new reimagining thing, and that the Crash game is just 3 good-looking Crash Bandicoot games that haven't really been tweaked at all for a modern audience. So I guess it depends on how you sit. And Sonic Mania is that outlier. I think oh man, this is tough.
Best use of nostalgia. All right. So when nostalgia is playing, which one of these ones benefited the most from nostalgia? It's an
I feel like
choice.
It's Sonic. I feel like it's Sonic, man. Well, yes, because I think Sonic Sonic Mania revived Sonic due to its use of nostalgia, due to its use of old levels, bring people back in and stuff like that. Crash Bandicoot didn't become. There's no Crash 5 coming out, right? You know,
Mhm.
they didn't. I mean, they sold a bunch of copies, but at the end of the day, they didn't really benefit from the nostalgia more so than just like look at the pretty game. It's a pretty game. It's
So you're
pretty.
going, you're thinking long term. You're thinking long term franchise viability.
I'm just thinking more in terms of the game being good using nostalgia, not not Sony screwing us over. But we can. Hey, it's up to you. I don't care.
Okay, let's
I
go
think.
for
I think.
positive. Let's say Sonic. All right, because Sonic was the positive, nostalgic. Yeah, it
But
went
if you
back and.
want, but if you
Mhm.
want to go with what you were saying, how a company used it, Metroid's like the good is the positive one there, and Sony I guess would be the negative one there. I don't want you to concede it just because you make a very good point.
Well, I think Crash is the strongest use of nostalgia because it was all about nostalgia. People on Twitter were going crazy. People that had not even
No,
played
yeah,
Crash.
you're right. You're right. No, you're actually right. You're totally right. And see, this is why I like Game of the Year deliberations because you're right. Like if Crash, if that game was anything else,
Yeah.
no one would have bought it. They would have been like, whatever. But it's like, oh, I remember Crash Bandicoot on PS1. I just played Uncharted 4 and had that Crash Bandicoot part. Like, of course, I
Yeah.
want to play 3
Oh
Crash
yeah,
Bandicoot
they were
games.
planting the seed. Oh my god, those jerks.
Yeah, yeah, give it to Sony. Yeah, shame on you, Sony. Make a good. I want you guys to, as an apology, that Shadow of the Colossus one better be good, and also do a God of War remake for Christ's sake. Just do it already. You've
Mhm.
re-released the collection 800 times. But yes, best use of nostalgia, Crash Bandicoot, the Insane trilogy. How insane it was. You
Okay.
guys should be excited because Matt's going to talk a lot for this next one.
Yeah, we've got this weird category here that you thought of that I thought was pretty cool. Best old Final Fantasy that I played this year.
I want the commenters too to shout out because I feel like this is just as much Matt and my category as it is our viewers and those who are in the comments right now. So
Yes.
we're gonna list off these. I think any Final Fantasy that you played this year is up for grabs. I did not watch every single one, but if I would say the one I watched the most is probably 13.
Corey Lavoie
Considering
just said, "Oh God." The ones we played this year was the 13
that's how I feel.
trilogy, which Corey actually gifted to in a giveaway. We just did the draw today, and Alan Bloxham won it.
Hey, congratulations, Alan.
13 trilogy, 10, and 10-2. And then I also played a bit of Final Fantasy 9 trying to beat it.
I think 13-2 is your favorite.
Well, to me, it's going to come down to 13-2 and 10. 13-2 I really, really loved. 10 I also loved. They're both very linear. They're both very focused. I love the battle system in both. But I would say that 13-2 had a few snags where most of the time the writing was really, really great. 10, I think, was pretty much flawless most of the way through. But just like Corey said, personally he likes 13-2 more. If I had to pick one to play again,
Final Fantasy 7.
if I had to recommend, well, I love 7. 7 is in my DNA. It was the first big
Maybe
Final
maybe
Fantasy I
that'll
played.
be next year. Maybe that'll win next year's because you're gonna play through Final Fantasy 7 in 2018 stream, right, Matt?
Probably.
Well,
Whenever the lead up to Final Fantasy 7 remake happens, that's when we'll be playing that. But with
2019, 2020. It's
if
probably when that'll be.
if I had to recommend a Final Fantasy game, it would probably be 10 as a safe bet to a lot of people. But personally, I like the characters and the story moments in 13-2. However, 13-2 just has 13-2 has problems where there are moments, but there's moments in 10 where I think the puzzles are stupid. Lightning Returns was slower for me to get started on, but then I loved how it all came together. Lightning Returns is basically Majora's Mask. If you like Majora's Mask,
Yeah, I
you'll really
think
like Lightning
13
Returns.
I think 13-2 alleviates a lot of the issues that 13 had in the hand holding, and it does so by opening up a really cool mechanic, which is like time travel and stuff. I don't even play that much Final Fantasy, but as somebody who doesn't play a lot of JRPGs, if you were like, hey, this Final Fantasy has time travel and dimension jumping and stuff, I'd be like, cool, I'm there. As a gameplay mechanic.
And a
So I think
very
my vote.
linear, focused story that deals with people and how they. It has all the like big god time stuff and all this stuff, but at the heart of 13-2, it's how do the characters deal with each of these moments. Much like 10, it deals with all this other crap. But whereas 13 got lost in trying to set up all the lore, 13.2 just focused on how does this lore actually make people feel.
So I think out of the 13 trilogy, we can drop OG 13 because, like you said, it's a flawed game, but it has to grow on you. I think 13 everyone enjoyed quite a bit. But also what I want to do is I want you to take into account all this wonderful time you spent on stream with all these wonderful people. Once again, shouts out, props to 500 subs. That's hard work from Matt. I just helped a little bit. If you could remember back, I mean, you guys had a lot of big moments. What was that boss you spent almost a week on? I feel like you should be taking some of this kind of stuff into account too. You guys,
that's true.
Fought.
I mean, 13 was a real adventure. Bartendaloos 2 took us 4 days to beat, and just constant strategies. And that was one of the things I liked the best about streaming it, was that everybody was contributing. Every time a strategy would fail, it was, let's try this, and everybody would get their turn with the strategies. So that was pretty big. 13.2 didn't really have the same kind of challenge,
quite a few. I watched quite a few of those streams, that specific boss fight. I was in there. It was exciting.
And that's what I loved about 10, was that it had a lot of challenging boss battles that took basically puzzles in a way. And that took more. And another thing I liked about 10, especially with streaming, is that I think that battle system of strict turn-based, not active turn-based, where bars are filling up, where you know exactly what's going to happen 4 moves from now. I love that about 10. And I mean, there were times where we would just sit and I wouldn't take the turn for like 10 minutes and we just think, what's the best? How are we going to survive this? So 10 had more of those big moments.
I think that's why JRPGs essentially work for our channel and our audience, and for streaming in general, is that idea. I think 13 has the whole 13 trilogy has a really cool battle system. But when it comes down to something you can sit down, you could take a breather, you could talk about it. I think 13 specifically took a lot of energy out of you. I think there was some days where you were probably just like, man, I've had it, I'm done. But 10, it seems like I remember you going through 10 and it seemed like you had nothing but nice things to say. Whereas 13, sometimes you were like, man, you'd message me and be like, this guy or this thing specifically, it's brutal. I think 10 was like an overall, but this is from the outside perspective. I don't watch every stream. I'm not in it like you are. I think right now it's between 10 and 13 too.
Yeah, 10 was quite breezy. I mean, there were some slow puzzling moments and like a clock puzzle that sucked, but overall it felt pretty good the whole way through. We also played 10 too, but I think that game's mostly garbage other than the combat system. 10 and 13 too. 10 and 13 too.
That's it, because 13, like you said, 13 is a little bit rough to start, and you have to give it some love. And I think that there was a growing pain with that one. You guys came out on top, but there was a growing pain. 13-2, all around, you seem to enjoy way more. And then I think Lightning Returns, while interesting, I just from an outside perspective, I saw you talking about 13-2 more.
Yeah, I would say as a personal choice, I would go with 13-2. And then 10, but 10 is so damn good. 10 was so much more of a surprise, because I thought, oh, this is the game all people like because it was their first one, the nostalgia. But it held up extremely well. It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. But as a personal choice, I like 13-2. I like the music a lot more too in 13-2.
We can only have one, Matt. There can only be one.
I'm gonna go with.
I'll throw in 13-2.
There you go.
Even though I haven't played it. Yes.
That's it. Yes. 13-2, and that was the one. So you called it, I called it, and Corey LeVlas as well. At 13-2. Oh,
I hope you guys aren't too mad.
Crazy Cause wants to add a category.
Oh, geez. You know what, Matt? We should do another episode. I feel like next week as well.
Yes, we will. Okay, and then we can actually think about it. Crazy Cause wants to see best song.
Yeah, so let's
next week.
We have we're gonna do overall game of the year. You want to do overall game of the year next week?
Sure. Because I want to play more Horizon Zero Dawn so we can have that. And debate.
I want you to finish Super Mario Odyssey. I really truly blast through it.
Because
Mario Odyssey.
I'll do it right now.
Just on stream, impromptu. He just pulls it out. He just got it. Oh, I got it on my phone. All right, good. All right, so official game of the year stuff will be next week.
Yeah.
And so will best song, because we got to think about that. If we're gonna do best music, I really got to think about that. There was some crazy good music this year. Do you want to do a downer real quick?
Biggest
We can save
disappointment?
maybe one of these for. Yeah.
Or we
Do you
could
want to
save
save
it.
another one of these ones?
Yeah, we could save it
I
for
think we
next
have two
week.
more categories, right?
We had weirdest game and biggest disappointment.
Yeah. Well, let's field it to the commenters. Would you guys rather see biggest disappointment, or would you rather see
Let's do biggest disappointment
weirdest
because
game?
I don't know anything about weirdest game.
Okay. And then weirdest game, maybe you can play some weird stuff and
Yeah.
pop it in next week. All right, biggest disappointment. Give us those noms, Matt.
Mass Effect Andromeda. A bug in Surge, a game-breaking bug. A game-breaking bug in Prey. Battlefront 2. Outlast 2. Walking Dead Season 3.
Whew,
Wow.
I know which two it's going to come down to. So can we skip over Mass Effect and Star Wars for now and just talk about the other little ones?
Yeah,
Because those are the ones.
That's what I was thinking as well. Because,
Yeah,
all right, so Surge, you found a game-breaking bug in that game. And
Yes.
a lot of people didn't believe you. A lot of people did on N4G didn't like the E-Gate. What did you give it? Like a 2 out of 10 or something? Because you said unplayable.
I gave it a 2 out of 10. I gave it a 2 out of 10. What happened was there's a specific part after you beat a boss where you're supposed to run up and there's this new suit that unlocks and that allows you to get into the next area. But when I approached it, this big glass case it's supposed to open up was not opened. It wouldn't open. Nothing would happen. I looked up a bunch of places on Reddit, on the actual tech support. I looked all over Steam forums, found a few other people were having it. And after about, they were supposed to come out with a patch like a week or two later. That didn't pop up. I was trying to write my review, but at a certain point, I can't play the game anymore. I can't progress. I'm waiting on them to do a patch. So I just said, all right. I wrote what I thought about the game, gave it a 2 out of 10, reported the bug, and no one believed me. And here's the thing why it was so disappointing. I ended up giving the game, I think, a 6.5 or a 7 out of 10 after the bug was fixed. But I don't really play Dark Souls or Bloodborne that much. I have never beaten a Dark Souls game. The furthest I've gotten is maybe 10 to 15, maybe 15 or 20 hours in a Dark Souls 3. The Surge is a Dark Souls clone. There's many of them that exist, Lords of the Fallen to name one. And it was one of the only Dark Souls-esque games that I actually was having fun playing. And then to see such a big game-breaking bug halt my progress, the developers not respond to everything, and ultimately it soiled me on the game, that was huge disappointment. It's like you're having a really, really good time. You're watching an awesome movie. You go into the movie thinking you're not going to like it because usually you don't like this genre. But dude, wow, about Act 2, you're getting super excited. And then right as the climax is about to come, they turn off the movie and they go, hey, you got to wait about 3 weeks. Hope you're still interested in it. And then when the 3 weeks later come, you don't care anymore because it's whatever. You've forgotten the beginning anyways. It essentially ruined the game. I think as far as being the biggest disappointment in 2017, no. But as far as it being the biggest blunder that has ever happened to me when it comes to reviewing a game, like the biggest, wow, you really left something. And it's not like I was screwing around trying to break out of bounds. Like it just happened. I didn't do anything crazy. It just didn't, the trigger didn't hit and it didn't work. And there was no way around it. No way to go and kill another enemy. Nothing. It was just a dead game break. You cannot revert to old saves in that game either. So that was out of the question. It was essentially, it locked you in. Yeah, that's the problem. So it's like, even compared to, I'll bring this one up too, because it's in the same vein, the Prey glitch. Prey had a similar thing. You know, it was a pretty fun game. And then at one point, since it's kind of an open world-ish game, you go into different areas. Every time I would enter a certain area, the game would crash it would just crash, 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 crash. And so what I ended up doing is going back to like a save from 3 hours before, skipping a bunch of content that I did, hoping that that was the trigger, and avoiding that zone and going around it as much as possible until I very, very much had to at the end. And then it worked. So like what ended up happening is, yeah, the game just crashed consistently and I had to go 4 hours back and avoid a bunch of content. So in comparison, the Surge bug is worse, but they're in similar veins. I know the Prey bug was widespread enough that Polygon ran into it, IGN ran into it. So it wasn't just me. Whereas the Surge was a little bit crazier because it seemed like it was just me. And then when I wrote the article about the glitch, Like N4G specifically didn't approve it. Like people didn't want to believe that there was something wrong with the game.
Mm.
I mean, yeah, they're not going to stack up to EA doing that this year. So we can cut them.
Okay, but definitely,
But I wanted to make that
yeah.
piece.
I mean, especially because
Yes.
Surge could have been such a well. I mean, Surge was such a nice spot for like to see a new IP. I mean, we've seen lots of Dark Souls
Yeah.
ripoffs. Like Salt and Sanctuary is an interesting one too, but it's so close to Dark Souls, where it's the same sort of kind of atmosphere and the fantasy aspect. So to see something,
That glitch.
yeah,
That glitch soiled me on the entire thing. They offered me a DLC, and the DLC is like this crazy theme park kind of thing, which is like one of those guilty pleasures. I love stupid theme parks and games. That's why I like Dead Rising so much. But even that, they were like, "We'll give you this. You can play it." I'm like, I'm not interested because
mm-hmm.
that time that you guys broke the game and then made me go back to a Dark Souls game almost a month later and try to relearn the whole game and fight the last two bosses.
Right.
Yeah, no, not
Yeah, you
exactly.
lose
Like
the
that's
momentum on it.
terrible.
Okay, what about Corey wants to know, was the bug ever patched?
Yeah, but it was like I said, 3 to 4.
Late.
It took so long that I gave the game a score of a 2 out of 10, and then when they patched it, I beat the game. It was like 4 or 5 hours left, and then I updated my score. But it was like I found it like launch week, before I think the embargo was even up. Like I found it while I was reviewing it before reviews were out, I believe, and then it was just nope. Took like 3 to 4 weeks, which is really unexcusable for a game's launch month.
Okay.
But yeah, it got patched.
Outlast 2 and Walking
sure.
Dead 3. Are they going to stack up against Mass Effect and Battlefront, or do you just want to give them sort of a quick rundown? Because was Walking Dead 2 good enough that Walking Dead 3 was another disappointment? Walking Dead 1 was such a essential thing to play when it came out, and Walking Dead 2 I got about 2 or 3 episodes in, and I thought, I don't care anymore.
I think that's why I was excited for 3 is that they had run the story's course with Walking Dead season 1 and 2. They keep the same characters through season 1 and 2 and the little mid kind of miniseries. And then they also keep the same characters in the Michonne miniseries they do. So season 3 of The Walking Dead was supposed to be brand new cast. It's really going to push forward. And it started off so strong and then consistently got worse and worse. And I'm not just talking about writing. Like towards the end, this is also preceding a few months the layoffs of Telltale, all these big layoffs, and I feel like that kind of affected some of these games, also like Batman Season 2 and stuff like that. It just technically got worse. Games were stuttering. Episodes just felt like filler, and eventually, what started off as an interesting story ended on a complete bummer and a hey, you like Clementine, right? Well, you'll see her in season 4 or whatever. But overall, as a Walking Dead story, it's not good. As a Telltale game, it's not good. As a point and click adventure game, or even a game where you press buttons in sequence, it's not good because it's so laggy and choppy. The best thing I could say is that the actors really gave it their all in the presentation or the performances. Some of those characters are really good, but almost everything behind that game, past the first episode or two, is just utter trash. Like it's one of the episodes, you don't even move the character around, which is like what you do in Telltale games.
Wow.
It's just one big like you move him around for 20 seconds. The rest of it is a glorified cutscene. And that's when you know that they're stretching it. When they're charging $15 for a glorified cutscene, that's my issue with it. And then the other one was Outlast 2. I guess Outlast 2, it's only disappointing because the first one did such a great job capturing this eeriness and this sense of atmosphere. And then Outlast 2, I was excited for because they were opening it up a bit. They were introducing the evils of the outdoors, and it wasn't tied to the first one in story. And then it's kind of ended up just being like shock horror and unpleasant things that I'm not going to repeat on stream. If you really want to hear about that game, go watch. We did a video on it, Outlast 2. We did a GTT. But a game that was so good about atmosphere, eventually it boiled down to shock horror, kind of stuff that you're like, I don't really need to see this. This isn't scaring me. It's just making me kind of wish that you would have thought of something more creative than showing dead children and stuff like that. And that's why Outlast 2, it's worse than the first one. And ultimately, this is one of the horror games that I was most excited for. like more so than Resident Evil 7. And Resident Evil 7 was way, way better. So for me personally, disappointing. But compared to the colossal mistake that was Mass Effect and the money they lost off of Star Wars by trying to game everybody, no, they don't stack up. So let's have this conversation, Matt.
Well, for me,
what do you think?
For me, there's a clear number one here. These are both two gigantic disappointments, but I have a clear number one. Do you?
And it has to do with the fact that I have played one match of Battlefront. I have played all of Mass Effect Andromeda. I reviewed it at a 6.5 or a 6. A 6. I gave it a 6 or a 6.5. I can't remember. But I also don't have a big nostalgia for Mass Effect like a lot of other people do. I really enjoy it as a BioWare franchise. From an industry person, from a journalistic standpoint, yes, I have a number one. And I think it's probably what yours is too. But I don't know. What do you? You first. You show me yours, and then I'll show you mine.
All right. Now, I'm a big Star Wars fan. I'm a huge Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
And when I first heard that DICE was going to take over Battlefront, I thought this could work. They do really nice. I mean, Battlefield 4 was great. The earlier Battlefields were great. They're probably going to do the same thing. They're probably the closest example of how to do this kind of warfare. But then things started coming out from DICE like, we're really scared about screwing it up. We're just going to stick to what we know. We're not going to do any single player. The first Battlefront came out. It looked beautiful. The map design sucked. It was just, no matter how...
There's like 5 maps.
Yeah, and the maps were just you running around in an open field getting sniped by pistols. I just couldn't...
Every 5 seconds.
As much as I wanted to play it, I just couldn't stand the game. Battlefront 2, they somehow outdid themselves with this microtransaction, loot crate crap, psychological. And although the revolution of people online and the most downvoted Reddit comment of all time got EA to just like days or a week before release actually make a fundamental change and take out the paid loot boxes, the problem is that the whole basis of playing the game still revolves around earning enough credits to open the loot boxes. So that's still a huge problem. Now, because
they didn't fix the problem, they just sidestepped the blame is what happened.
And also the whole point of trying to get people to buy loot boxes means you make unlocking them the normal way horrible. So now they've taken out the ability to buy the boxes, and now they just leave in the horrible
It's just
part.
a bad progression. It's just not fun. It doesn't have any of that Call of Duty unlocking. Like you want to think as a Star Wars fan, if you haven't played this, like, oh, but I'll still like earn new guns and new abilities. Like, no, that progression is the loot boxes. And you can't buy your way anymore. It's still just a crappy loot box.
Unless you pre-ordered it, because those people could. Because the people that got in a day early, they were ahead of everybody. I will say this though. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say
to that point, it's we're dealing with the Skype, the back and forth. To the point being is that unlike Call of Duty, if I start and I'm a level 1, if I'm accurate enough, I can pistol shoot you in the head, even though you have like your combat shotgun or whatever. Now, Star Wars Battlefront 2, you just upgrade your guy. You make him better. Like there's grenades that are just better grenades. So you have a shoe up. Not only is it a bad and an unfun progression system, it's unfair and unbalanced. And it's just like, that's the thing, because there's a good Star Wars game here. I haven't played the campaign. I've only played the online, but it's still fun to shoot people with blasters. Why? And then there's the backdrop too, that they pulled people off of that visceral Star Wars game to work on Battlefront. So that's also an issue. Or I think that was Mass Effect. One of the
Mass
two.
Effect, yeah.
I mean, this is both yeah, okay, so we'll talk about that Mass Effect. But like, DICE made something that's fun to play with your pew pew pew, your Star Wars, and like beyond all that, it's still it's like there's something there for Star Wars fans, but everything around it, it's one of those games you just want to be like, all right, one and done, because I'm never gonna play this for more than an hour, you know?
I bought the first Battlefront for $10, and I still regretted it. It sucks. Just to play with a friend.
On the Xbox, they have on the Xbox they have the EA Access, which you pay $5 and you can get a 10-hour trial And I still have 9 hours left on Battlefront 1. Like, I've played a lot of that game. I've seen every map. Maybe more like, I have like 6 or 7 hours. I'm being facetious. But, like, I don't, especially with the bad progression system in 2, I can't see myself, which is, it's a disservice because the graphics are good. Like, DICE put a lot of work into it. You can see that they tried.
Probably the best
battling
graphics we've seen
Disney
in
and
a
all that stuff.
generation in terms of photorealism.
Yes, it's very, very good. And that's why it beckons you to play it. But then it's just like the dumbest stuff. So like they dropped the amount of credits that these, awesome characters would take to purchase. But they didn't do anything about the progression system. And they also added cooldown timers. So the money you are gaining from winning matches towards buying those loot crates to progress in your leveling, it would be like, okay, you can't earn those for 14 hours now
they capped people so that you couldn't get ahead of it
for no reason. It's like they're not even doing it to try to make money. And I also heard the campaign wasn't very good.
Yeah, I've heard that it's
that
not
might
good
just
as
be
well.
That's it.
But you know what? No matter
it
how
could be
disappointing that was, and how much of a Star Wars fan I am, and how much I would love somebody else to make that game, Battlefront 1 already set us up for failure.
Battlefront 3 and 4.
So I wasn't that disappointed with this. I thought, yeah, good for you, EA. We knew this was going to be bad. Mass Effect, however, is one of the most important trilogies in all of gaming. And
this is what I think.
Mm-hmm.
This was my number one. I'm glad you did
Star
Wars first, because it is the fact that there was still a tangible bit of hope. Like Mass Effect, even though it's EA, like BioWare can do it. They've pushed through. Like you said, Star Wars Battlefront, the first one was mediocre. At the very most, there was the undercurrent of like, oh, EA will still mess this up. So you were expecting the disappointment in some way, just not this colossally big failure of a way. But Mass Effect Andromeda was so bad, they killed the franchise. There's no other way of putting it. They literally killed it.
Yeah. They're
not doing any Mass Effect stuff anymore because Andromeda was so poorly written. It was so messy and glitchy, and there was just fragments of hope. I have a few friends who enjoy the game. I have one friend who very specifically likes Mass Effect, and he thought it was a good game. And that's good. I'm glad that he can enjoy it. But for a lot of other Mass Effect fans, and for literally the company, Mass Effect Andromeda effectively killed the Mass Effect universe, and it was just getting started. Matt, say your piece, because I know you have a piece on it.
Well, again, it was EA setting them up for failure. They forced them to use the DICE engine, which is great in action games and is not designed for open world RPGs. So they were behind the 8 ball there. They took all the best members at BioWare. They took all the best members of the team and all the experienced members and got them to work on Anthem, a perpetually online Destiny rival. They were taking members. They were taking ideas from the Andromeda team. They gave... The Andromeda team was a team that had never made a full game before on their own. It was led by somebody who had never led a team that had made a full game before. And on top of that, they were stuck with this DICE engine that EA says, you're going to make it with this no matter what. So you get a game that has some interesting textures, but we all saw the problems with the facial animation. It was just too hard for them to...
I wanted to say that, too. There's a sprinkling. As you lead up to the eventual disappointment of how bad it is, there's sprinkling disappointments in there, too. Like, I thought the trailer had really good faces. What is this garbage that we're seeing now? So as you got up there, it was just disappointing along the way. Every step of the way, it seemed like you said, they were just messing it up, taking good people off the team, replacing it, taking assets from other developers, and then shutting down those developers. It's just, the whole thing stinks. It stinks really bad. Continue, Matt. My bad. Sorry for
and also there was so much potential because you were exploring a new galaxy. And to me, I got the vibe that this could be a really cool Star Trek game. This could be like new worlds. You have unlimited, that was the smartest way because they'd already told such a great story. You couldn't continue that story anymore from the trilogy. So
let's move galaxy.
Exactly. And then when they go, two things. Number one, the first, that's the biggest problem is that why are there still Krogans and everybody? I don't want to talk to them anymore. Stop using assets from the last game. And then the second thing is that the first alien race you meet, you immediately just get into like a machine gun fight and kill them.
Yeah. You're just like, all for being pleasant and welcoming to the galaxy.
They're all
Just
that
shooting them all out.
tension that could have been there, learning about their culture. Like if it's going to break down into an eventual fight in a war, that's fine. But you could have had, you just lost all the tension and suspense and interest by within seconds of you meeting them. It's a gunfight.
There's some pretty interesting areas in that game, and I would be remiss if I said that I didn't have fun at points. I definitely had fun playing that game at points, but like we said at the top of this, you can get entertainment out of anything. Even bad games and bad films you can be entertained by. And Mass Effect Andromeda, even the good parts are disappointing because like on that last world where you finally get like you're going really fast and you're in your cool little hover thing, which used to be a pain in the ass to control, but now it's actually kind of fun to drive. You're boosting super fast and it's like a 20-second thing and you're like, oh, this really makes me miss how it was in Mass Effect 2 and 1. Honestly, it's like with it's sweet and sour is what it is, all over the place, and the worst kind of sour. It killed the franchise.
Yeah.
It killed.
That's the best.
Can't.
I think it's the best point that you made is that you took something that should have been a can't miss and you ruined it's. We can't have Mass Effect anymore. You ruined it. Even because here's the thing
away from it
is if gamers always remember the last game. So even if the next Mass Effect, say they made a prequel or something and it was really, really good, it would probably sell hardly anything because people would be so turned off by what happened with Andromeda. They wouldn't even give it a chance, no matter how good it is.
I think Mass Effect is one of those things that we might see eventually tried to be revived, either in reboot or whatever, maybe 10 years down the line. But
Maybe
what
an
people
MMO?
often forget, something like that, like an Elder Scrolls Online sort of deal. But
Card game?
maybe I could see that happening. But what people often forget is that EA, besides being known for EA Sports in the game and being, one of the worst companies in the gaming industry, is that they have a proverbial graveyard of franchises and it grows day by day. Visceral Games shut down, and that means they own Dead Space. So Dead Space sits in a graveyard here and we'll never get a Dead Space 4. And if there's a really passionate development team that wants to make a Dead Space 4, they better be best friends with EA and then go work for EA. And when you have such a big franchise like Mass Effect, and like Matt said, when BioWare was acquired by them, you see these breakdowns, the teams are all scattered. You're never going to get a true Mass Effect again because they tried, they failed spectacularly. They're putting it to rest. And they're going to come back to it in 10 years when all those people who made those games are on to other studios or working somewhere else or whatever. And it's very sad to see one of the best trilogies, asterisk, that ending of 3 sucks, of the 360 PS3 generation, turned out to be one of the biggest, or if not the biggest disappointment of 2017. That's
it. That's a wrap.
Yeah,
right
I'm
there.
fine. I'm fine with I'm not fine with it, but Mass Effect Andromeda is the most disappointing game of 2017. Way to sandbag it. This feels John Goodman. I can't wait for next week when we go over Game of the Year.
So next week we'll talk about best song or maybe best soundtrack, actual game of the year.
Best graphics?
Maybe best gaming moment or something.
Style?
Sure, that'll be fun.
Yeah, we can do that.
Visual design style.
We can maybe wrap that up into weirdest because we're not doing weirdest today.
Mm-hmm.
We'll figure it out. We'll come back, but you're definitely next week getting best soundtrack and or music and or song, something like that, because awesome suggestion. And then we'll talk about game of the year. It's going to be hard, man. There's a lot of contestants. Super Mario Odyssey, Uncharted, Horizon, Persona 5, Breath of the Wild.
Oh, yeah, Breath of the Wild, yeah.
That's a game that you like.
It is a real special game.
Final Fantasy 7 for the PC.
Why not?
Stream it. I had a good time, Matt.
That was fun.
This was fun. I flip-flopped on some things. I think you flip-flopped on some things. We learned new things about each other. And sometimes, Matt, you're right. Nostalgia is the best when it's at its cynic. God damn it, Sony. So yeah, thanks for everyone for joining and stuff.
Yeah, so you can check at 90skid.com. We got news, reviews, opinions, And you
those top 5 personal game of the year. Like I said, those will be coming up soon. So Matt, I know you're making yours. I know Kirsty's working on hers. Misha's working on hers. Kevin and I are both working on ours. So not only we have a 90s kid game, but you should have at least top 25 games spread across top 5s. Well, there'll probably be overlaps, but there's a lot of games of the year stuff over at 90skid.com for sure.
And right now on the channel, we're streaming Legend of Dragoon, Lost Odyssey, and Tales of Xillia. Coming up, most likely Final Fantasy 12 to replace Legend of Dragoon. However, you can vote in the Discord if you don't want that to happen. Because Mass Effect 1 is only a couple votes behind.
Mass Effect, guys. Please, Mass Effect. God, I would tell you to do South Park Stick of Truth, but I think that YouTube might actually ban you. I don't know, actually. Is YouTube against nudity? South Park Stick of Truth
YouTube doesn't even know what they're against because they just have an algorithm thing.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
They like the videos that they tell me are not suitable for advertising viewers. It's just it's so random when they pick for this. Corey Lavaw had voted for Mass Effect. So
hey, Mass Effect 1 is a good time, guys. It's got some jank.
Thanks to Corey. Thanks to Beckhamgar. Thank you to Ted, Crazy Cause, Luigi Man.
Hey,
Alan Bloxham, Andrea Santos.
Hey,
Bravely
don't forget.
Forward.
Keep going.
That's it.
Don't forget, guys, we do have a Patreon. That's patreon.com/
a 90s kid.
Help me out.
It's in the description.
And we do. Yes. You should go there if you guys like the videos. I know that the Patreon rewards themselves are pretty stream based, but going into 2018, I think we might have some extra videos or some stuff, some more rewards. So check it out as we come into the new year. But yeah, every little bit helps, guys. And that whole thing they were trying to do where they were trying to charge you guys extra, they reverted that.
They did,
like
actually, yeah.
Patreon.
20, one of the best stories of 20 of gaming in this year has been that people can make their voices heard. The revolution is alive.
For sure. Yeah, Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus, game of the year 2017. Bye.
Okay, bye, everybody.
No, I'm kidding. No, it's not that.
Bye.
We'll talk about it next week. Bye.